Video, we are going to discuss qualification. Qualification is the information we need to know about an opportunity to truly understand where we are and how to progress that opportunity. Now, more often than not, people think they've qualified a customer or an opportunity or a potential client, but often there's some key information missing. One of the best qualification methodologies is something called MEDDIC. MEDDIC stands for Metrics, Economic Buyer, Decision Criteria, Decision Process, Identify Pain and Champion. We're going to go through each one of these individually to help you understand the importance of this criteria and how we can use it to really qualify an op. Starting with metrics, why are metrics so important? Well, this is where we can help the customer quantify the problem or the objective or the goal or the target. The reason this is so critical is because at some point we're going to put a price in front of a customer and we need to demonstrate an ROI or return on investment in that price point. One of the best ways of doing this is learning about customers' metrics. Now, think about it like this. If I was putting a price point in front of your face, say for £40,000, and there wasn't anything quantifiable or demonstrable in what you're going to get back, either the person or the champion you're selling to or the economic buyer who makes the decision is likely to say no because there's not a clear business case. However, if I was to put a price of £40,000 in front of you and you were to see that there was a clear pathway to another £1 million return on investment, market opportunity of another £400,000, and also cutting away lost revenue of £400,000 as well, all of a sudden you see a clear return on investment. So when it comes to qualifying an opportunity, we need to make sure we understand all of the metrics that are associated with their world. So that could be a target that they're aiming for, a loss of time, amount of money they're losing, the cost of inertia of doing nothing, or the size of opportunity going forward. And that's why metrics is so critical. It helps to build clear business cases. The E of MEDDIC, which stands for economic buyer. Now, different organisations use different terms like decision maker or ultimate decision maker or person responsible for budget. Now, these can actually create a bit of a problem because we need to assume that everyone in the business is a decision maker. But the person that we really want to influence is the guy or gal who's signing the check, the person who is giving up the budget for this project or this need or this product that they're purchasing. And they are the economic buyer. Now, our objective as salespeople is to make sure that we get our proposition in front of the economic buyer so they can see the value and how it's going to help, ideally with overarching business goals, as well as departmental goals and individual goals. So this comes down to the relationship that we have with the champion or the person that we're selling to. Ideally, we want them to report directly to the economic buyer, or alternatively, they can get us in front of that economic buyer. It's not just about getting there and selling the product to the EB. It's also about understanding why they would sign that check. What goals is it helping them achieve? How is it going to help the business with the business's overarching goals? If we can qualify who the economic buyer is and what's motivating them to sign the check and purchase our product or service, it puts us in a really, really good position. D stands for decision criteria. So this is literally the boxes that need to be ticked for someone to purchase your product or your service. So think of this like a shopping list. What exactly does it need to do to deem to be a successful proposition, product or service? Now, a really good way of thinking about this is that different people in an organisation have different decision criteria. So the end user, as an example, might have very different criteria to the economic buyer or the department head. So when looking for the decision criteria, so what boxes does it need to tick, make sure that we're taking into account every single stakeholder within that organisation, not just the champion that you're selling to, and not just the economic buyer. Sometimes the end user, although they don't appear to have power in the purchase, can affect it because it doesn't do what they need it to do, be it workflow or be it level of detail or depth, or even how it compares against what they're doing at the moment. Now, where the decision criteria comes into its own is when you're selling against the competitor. You need to make sure that the functions and the features of your product is very clear to see how the customer's going to get value against it versus the competitor. Now, don't assume the competitor is just who's involved in the buying process or other vendors they're looking at. It's also their incumbent product. Even if they're doing nothing or they're using a very backwards process or a backwards product or a backwards service, you're still competing against that. So when looking at decision criteria, make sure you're taking into account not just their incumbent product, but any competitors who are involved in that vendor analysis as well. Then we have the second D, which is decision process. So this is literally the process that needs to take place for someone to purchase your product. Almost like a close plan or a process to close. Now, a really good way of thinking about this is like organising a wedding. It all starts with that wedding date. If you don't have that wedding day, you don't know what you're aiming towards. So when you phone the venue, when you phone the flowers, when you phone the band that you want to play at your wedding, they'll all ask you the same question first. When is the wedding? And it's exactly the same as when guiding someone through a buying process or a decision process. When do you want to start using the product? When do you want to start using the service? When's the compelling event? Once we've got that compelling event, we can work backwards on the information that we need. When are you going to show it to the CEO? When are we going to get legal involved? When are we going to get procurement involved? All the necessary steps for someone purchasing your product or service. When are we going to start training your end users? When are we going to start onboarding you? All of that key information. Ideally, we want that dated and confirmed from the client of when those steps are taking place. So that gives us control of the buying process. One of the biggest things that salespeople go through is losing control in the last 10-15% of an opportunity because they don't know when this stuff is taking place. That then makes it difficult to forecast, difficult to understand when it's actually going to be purchased and what steps need to take place in that process. So make sure that you understand the customer's decision process. It stands for identify or identify pain. Now, when you think about sales, if you distill it down, it's the same thing across the globe. Find the problem, solve it with your product. And it all starts with pain, problem, or initiative. Why does the customer need to purchase your product? Now, this is probably the most common mistake people make with pain, is they confuse outcomes for pain. So what do I mean by that? So if you were selling a pen as an example, the easy thing to do is for someone to say, we need a pen. Well, really what we understand is, why do they need a pen? Because that gives you the objective of what they're trying to achieve, or the pain or the problem that they're going through at the moment. And then when you align your product to that, all of a sudden your product becomes incredibly valuable. A good way of looking at the I in MEDDIC is that we want to understand the pain from a company level, a departmental level, and an individual level. And when we fully understand that pain, it becomes much easier to attach the value of your product at all levels of the value pyramid. And lastly, the C of MEDDIC stands for champion. So this is the person who is driving your purchase in the organization, the person that we're selling to who is motivated to purchase your product. We don't just want to understand who the champion is. We want to understand the relationship between the champion and the economic buyer. What's motivating the champion to drive this into the business? Also, on top of that, it's really important to understand that we've stress tested that champion as well to make sure that they're working for us. We understand the motivation. We understand what they've got to gain from it. They understand how this makes them look within their organization. Now, looking at MEDDIC holistically, once we've qualified all of that information, it gives us a much more detailed and better understanding of that opportunity. In the description below are typical questions you can ask in the MEDDIC stages to understand whether you've captured the right information to really solidify your understanding of that opportunity. The last thing I say about MEDDIC is, don't look at it as something you just need to achieve in one call. This is something you need to achieve during the life cycle of the opportunity to strengthen your knowledge of that prospect and of that op. Give it a go. Let me know any feedback you have, and good luck.